Okay, let's see. Oh, didn't mean to do that. I don't want to hear that. Alright, let me go ahead and open up my stream. There we are. Alright, now I'm going to mute my stream because I don't want to hear myself. Close that out. Pop out chat. Make it as small as is still workable. Move it over just a little bit until it's sort of out of the way. Okay. I need power toys really quick, just so I can see again how I'm supposed to do this. Usually I just remember. It's sad this time, I suppose. I've forgotten. Okay, I don't care about new stuff. I just want to actually see stuff that I'm using. Always on top. Windows Control T. I could have sworn I'd used that. Windows T. Okay, well there we go. It finally worked. Great. Okay. Now, since that's all good, we're gonna go ahead and get to work today. Heck yeah. First things first, we actually have to go to WoodRS. Too bad for me, I suppose. We're going to grab large 4. We'll work with this. This will be what we work with. Huh. And that does in fact go off of the box, which is funny. It's you know, newest bug introduced. Alrighty. Now we're gonna start at like a decent moderate distance from the edge, just in case we need any of the space right there, but we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna do it right here, and I want to make these letters somewhat large so that we don't have to worry about any like spacing issues. I don't know if I want them to be like that large though. I feel like this is a better scale. I feel like that's all right. This is the really hard part of making something like this, is making sure that your letters are okay looking. Yeah, that's my issue though, is if I make it like that, then it looks like bold by comparison to everything else. If I don't make it like that, then I don't know what I'm doing, man. It's horrifying. I hate drawing E's. E is the worst letter. This is like super duper hard to work with, man. Look, oh, that good. Looks okay. Now we're just gonna go ahead and we're going to do N. Then we've got a pretty simple job for the rest of this. Go ahead and do that. Do that. This is unreal. It's an unreal issue to have. Okay, so for the sake of not going back to links, oh, but I kind of have to though, don't I? Darn it. Darn it. Darn it. That sucks so bad. I'm gonna go back to links for 2 neon wires, man. And I think the ferry has like just left by now. Yeah, so we're not gonna do that. We're just going to do a bit of a placeholder for right now, and we'll get to that tomorrow when I'm not on stream, because that sucks. We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna bring a wire truck over, and we are just going to place wires right there, finishing this, just to save it. Okay. That should be fine. Now, we can go ahead and we can destroy that. That's alright. It's also off the ground, which makes it a little bit more convenient to work with, I'd say. Now what we're going to do, we've got a few things to work on here. First of all, we need to figure out how many different adjustments we're willing to let this be. So how long we want like a given track to be, how many ticks, how many different displays we want them to be able to add. So what I'm going to do, I'm thinking the important things are So I think that first of all we want to figure out how many components we're going to need for each and every one of these, right? So I want to say that we're going to have an option for O on, we're going to have an option for P on, for E on, for N on. So that's 4. So we have 4 possible options. And then I also want for OP, OPE, OPEN. So it's going to be up to 7 options. And then I want to let people choose. Oh, well. Oh, you know, that actually makes that perfect because we have OPEN there. So we have 7 options. That covers all of the basic stuff. We're going to go ahead and we're also going to make an option for the barrier on and the barrier off, which I think will be beneficial because we either have 7 options and then another option, or we have 14 options, which isn't nearly as good. And this also makes it very, very easy to create a flashing layout where, yeah, okay, so you're all, that's going to make us have to add in one more button there, but we're going to have 7 total options, and we're going to have one more option past that. So we're actually going to need some buttons. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab, we need at least 7, 8, 9, we need at least 10, so I'm just going to grab 10 for now, and we're going to call that good. I think that 10 should be a pretty reliable amount. And we'll actually have to figure out the rest later. It sucks that we can't just, you know, buy things a little bit easier, but it's whatever, it's alright. You know what I should do? I actually should market this stream. I'm hanging out and I'm not telling anybody that I'm streaming. Right, we've got all that stuff set up, so we're just going to go ahead. We're going to grab our 4 buttons, and we're going to need 6 more of these. And it'll cover most of our basic functions. And then we'll have to grab more of this stuff later. We'll need buttons. We will need levers. But for now, I'm just going to keep buying buttons and levers as we go, because I want to spend not too much time in WoodRS. And I feel like this being like the first stream of this project, I should probably be, you know, working on the build as much as I possibly can the entire time. So, okay, well, let's not make me click no, Tom. Thom. His name is Thom, not Tom. Alright, we're actually going to label all of these buttons as well as soon as we place them right now. So, we're going to go ahead and we're going to orient these correctly. And we're just going to label each of them as we go. So we're going to have the button for just O. And we're going to separate these by 3 studs, I'm gonna say. I feel like that's a decent distance for them. We're gonna move that O, I reckon, and the P. I want this design to look nice-ish, so I'm trying to make it symmetrical about the midpoint. Keep every button spaced the exact same. What a joyous E. It looks so, it looks kind of like, Santa Claus. Just reminds me of the guy, you know, for whatever reason. Darn it. I love how I'm just like, you know, gradually getting a smaller and smaller font with every single letter that I make. And I'm just keeping it as tall, you know, for whatever reason. Okay, we've got open, we've got OP, OPE, OPEN. It's our first 7. Then we're going to need a button right here, which represents a squiggly squiggly. I feel like this is a great way to display that there's text on it. This is just remarkable. I'm truly an artist. Anyways, we're going to need a reset button. And we're finally going to need... We're actually going to represent this with an arrow instead. Okay. Now that we've got our basic level options set up, which is O, P, E, N, OP, OPE, OPEN. Outside, you know, the border, reset, and next, we are going to go ahead and start actually working on some of the components for this, which aren't necessarily going to be the funnest things ever, I'm gonna say. So I suppose that the first thing that we want to consider is well, I know I need a counter to know where we are. But the first thing to do, I guess, is actually choose how many we ticks will have. So I guess that all things are given with this situation of sorts, we may in fact be wise to well, first of all, actually, I'm going to bring some ore gates over here, and we're going to make our lives much, much easier by setting up some options right out the gate. So we know with this that they'll be playing one of these options, right? Which means that if I go ahead and I set up a system really quick, not really a system, but just a thing to turn on the correlated things, if I just set up OR gates for each of these options, then we'll actually be in a better spot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just add the correct amount of OR gates, and I'm just going to make every single option, I'm going to make them in front of their buttons. So we are going to have number 1, which is going to be O. Then we have P. Then we have E, which... That's fine. Okay. Then we're going to have N. We're going to have OP. We're going to have OPE. We're going to have OPEN. And we're going to have the option for the border. Now what we're going to do is we're actually going to put up all the options for all of these. So, OPEN, OPE, O and P, now we're just going to connect everything. So, we know that O goes right out to this guy right here. And this little part can be a bit nasty because we don't really care about it. Okay, it's unfortunate. Wire a bit too long for that. So we're just going to do whatever is the optimal method for this. Except I do want it like near the letters to be as pretty as possible. So we're going to, you know, try and hide wires and stuff. Now again, it's too long, which sucks a little bit. But we are all good. And it's going to become apparent as I keep building this why exactly I'm formatting stuff in this way. Okay. Now, we just had... First of all, we know for a fact that this one right here is O. So is this one. We know it's also the same right here. You know, this is P and this is P. This is P, this is P. You know, this is E, this is E. And now I just need to connect these back to where these things are in the rest of the circuit. So we drag this wire back over to O. We drag this wire back over to P. We'll drag this wire over to E, and then we'll drag this one over to N. Now, we're good on that stuff. We just need to add in this wire up to the border, which we'll just go ahead and do another thing of this for that. Okay, now we know that our display system is actually very, very easy. We'll actually have to wire this up real quick. So we're going to need this. And our display system is super duper easy. We only need to have one thing, memory for each of these guys. It'll output for one tick and then it disappears, which is good because that just means that our delay has to be on and will be set. So, there's really not much more that'll go into this. We just need the memory. So we have 8 different things for the memory. And what we can do is just decide based on that how much stuff we want to include in general. Because for every single one of those that we include, we need, you know, a number of wires. We need 16 NOT gates, 8 OR gates. So it's a matter of, you know, do we really have anything in specific that we want to do? There also isn't necessarily a reason to stop people from turning on multiple of the memory gates at once. It's just like unideal, I guess, but there's no problem with it. You know what? that sucks too, because I did the full reset and I didn't do a, a backspace. So we're actually going to need to add a backspace function at some point, which isn't so bad. We could actually change the reset to that, but like then it would take a long time to reset if I do enough of these. So I'm thinking like, obviously we need at least 4, right? We need to go from O to open. And then people like to just flash stuff a little bit. So I feel like 10 might be like at least a good base level for this. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do 10. I'm actually gonna go and grab that button for the backspace right now because it's actually quite important to have that on hand. Because I want every single button to be defined. I don't want to leave anything out. So we're just gonna bring this button over. We're just gonna make this a arrow going backwards. I forgot for a moment there how to make an arrow that goes backwards. Okay, there we are. OPEN, OP, OPE, OPEN, border, reset, enter, backspace, and rather move forward than enter, but we're all good. Now, oh, you know what? We also need a play button. We're going to grab a play button and a repeat lever. That's what we're going to go ahead and we're going to do today. Now this is where the wire art gets really difficult. We're going to need to decide how we're going to do the repeat button wire. Because we need to, show what it does, and that's it's a little difficult. We're going to go ahead and we're going to just draw the video play symbol for this. And then for repeat, I don't think that's actually that bad. I'm okay with that actually. That's alright. That's alright. Now we just have a few more things to go ahead and do. So that's actually something that'll be a little difficult to do later, I think, but it's alright. We're gonna go ahead and do, and this won't be the most complex build ever. I'm not gonna allow going back and editing the system beforehand, which I feel like is perfectly fine. There's no worry there. We're gonna go ahead and we're going to bring some signal delays out from the play button. What we know is that when we click play, that's aligned, yeah. We're gonna want 1 delay, 2 delay, 3 delay, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And we only have 9 because there's only 9 options past the initial option. Whenever we press the button, we can just send out our first signal. We don't have to wait at all. So we only need 9 of these. We space them 1 apart just so we have some wire room in the middle of them. Now we can really just move this truck kind of out of the way for now because we won't be using it. At least not for a moment here. And now we're, first of all, to save on wires and also because it was kind of unnecessary, we're just going to move these all right to each other anyway. I mean, it would make things like possibly just a little bit easier, but it's not that big of a worry, and I feel like it's more economic to save the wires on this one. Now, all we need to do is connect the play button up to those right there. And now the repeater actually is just the exact same thing as this, right? So what we actually need to do is we're going to use NOT gates for the first time real quick here. We're going to tack 2 NOT gates right here. And what we're going to do is we're going to say that this will output back into this delay, and its input actually won't be that delay. It'll be one more delay, which in this case we have to do this, and then we'll place it right there. One moment. Alrighty, we're back. Now we went ahead and placed this delay here. That delay is set to 1 tick. So 1 tick after the design turns off. Well, not necessarily 1 tick after the design turns off, but right after this guy, we wait 1 more tick for it to turn off completely. And then we tell it, alright, you know what, restart now. So that only goes through if the repeat lever is on. So we're going to need to grab an OR gate. Surprise, surprise, we need an OR gate. And this OR gate will say if the repeat lever is on, then it is, well, actually, we want the negative of the repeat lever. So what we can do is we can just get rid of this OR gate. Actually, we don't need that for right now. We just need a NOT gate. That's what we can do here. That saves us a little bit of resources. Now we just say that if the repeat lever is off, then we prevent this from running. And now, that's quite nice. So, the next thing really that we have to do is just start making memory storage. We just need to start making memory. But first things first, I suppose. We are going... We should continue with this guy really quick, because we also want to make sure that whenever we turn on this lever, it sends a signal into this so that it starts on the repetition. Which means that we're going to need, surprise, surprise, another 2 NOT gates. These 2 NOT gates will have a signal delay. These 2 NOT gates will input into this right here, which is to say that whenever these 2 NOT gates turn on, whenever this turns on, then we send a quick signal right there. We're going to say, alright, so this is when the lever is on right there. That's connected to that. We're going to connect this to this delay right here. We're going to set this delay to 1 tick. And that's to say that when the lever turns on, we take a 1 tick signal from that lever and we put that into our delay chain. So if we do that, then it goes through all of our delays, and then we wait until that turns off, and then we loop back on through. Awesome. I think that's pretty awesome sauce. And then when we turn off the lever, it refuses to run another cycle. So We win! Hooray! So, now we can actually start getting to the memory part. This is the fun stuff. We've already gone halfway through a truckload of wires. So, the first thing that we're going to do for the memory here is we're going to make a counter. And this counter is going to count our inputs. Really, count how many times that we've pressed the forward button. And this is going to help us dictate what part of our system we're in, really. So we're going to go ahead and... How do I want to do this? I guess that would be fine. So we're gonna go ahead and make our counter over on this side here, which means that routing the enter or the next will be a little difficult, but it will actually be for our best, I think. So for this, we have a few things that we're gonna need. We're mostly just gonna need NOT gates. Not mostly, I don't think. I think that we might... No, I think that we do need mostly these. I think this will be our most used component other than wires. By like very, very little, though. So, in this case, we are going... I think that we can make it this way and we'll be fine. So we're going to go ahead and we're just going to make memory 10 bits all right next to each other. It's 4. That's 5. 6. 7. 8. 9. Or is that 9? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so that is 9. We're just going to go off of the back here, because it's convenient. Whoa! That's cool. It's awesome. You know, I may be a little bit biased, but you know, I'm gonna promote one of my friends here to the whole 0 viewers of the stream. Smashed is a great guy. You know, one of the greats when it comes to building and Lumber Tycoon. This guy, he's hard to beat. It's like he's like if I were good at building, because my dedication here is like for logic, my dedication is unmatched. If I were a builder, yeah, there'd be no winning. I don't know. Smash is, you know, like the coolest guy, so like that guy. Yeah. I don't know. I'm very, very dedicated to logic. I've never really been good at building. I made one build one time and it was alright-ish, so might do that again, might not. We'll see how it all goes. I never taken myself for much of a builder, so. Now, the convenient thing about having all these OR gates here is we actually need these immediately as well. Now, I'll show that in just a moment. We're going to do that before we do the rest of this circuit. Going to wire this in. Going to wire this in. Now, we know that for this circuit, the bane of our existence would be to have it say multiple things at once. Because we know we want to check what we currently are at, right? And that's going to help us figure out where we're actually putting stuff. So we need to make sure that only one of these is on at once. The way that we do that is we just tell every single one of them to turn on the one before, right? And this will become an issue for later me when I make the backspace function, but it's not that bad. We'll be able to do it pretty easily. It was the same thing that I had to do in the internet project. This is actually the exact same system, really. If you really think about it, this is the exact same as the internet project, just without the whole internet gimmick, and also with some lot of removed complexity. This really is it's just a keyboard, right? It's a keyboard that says it's more like a parametric equation, I guess, where you say, you know, do things at a given t value, a given time, whereas the internet project has things always on based on, your inputs. So it's a bit different, but not necessarily dissimilar. Now what we're going to do is we're actually going to just start connecting all of these up. I don't like that wire right there. I want them down there. There we are. Now, what we could also do is if we need to, we can make sure that it says that nothing before it can be on. Which is something I've had to do before, but that's only really when you're sending a multiple tick length through it. We're only going to be sending a 1 tick signal through this, and we could also make sure of that by setting an offset, but this build is hopefully not going to have any people trying to mess with it, make bugs with it, so I'm not necessarily worried about doing that. Especially if I'm not going to publicize the design for this build, because whoa, hey there Apton, good to see you, buddy. Yeah, I'm rambling to myself, and suddenly there's actually someone in chat. Actually, to commemorate this, what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to make a red blinking light for you. This would be great. This is what I was made for. That is to imagine that you're still here and you didn't just message once. I can never quite tell. Although, I do have one red wire here, and that's why I'm doing it specifically on this. So we need to do that. Okay, we need to do one more. Hooray! Red blinking light. There are a lot of other things blinking as well, but the point of this is that it's a red blinking light. Unfortunately, because of how quick ticks are in this game, you can't actually do it once every 2 ticks. Otherwise, it's just always on. But you can do it 1 every 3 ticks, 1 every 4, 1 every, so on and so forth. This is all you need for a repeater, which is very funny to me. But I made the design for this a little bit more complex for general usage. Like when you want varying stuff, I could set this to where, because it's on 1 every 3 ticks, so I could set this to where, it's on 2 of every 3 ticks, so on and so forth. But that's something that's in my my major design, the finished product of it, really. I'm gonna move this wire over to where my workspace is. But I think the red blinking lights are pretty cool. This thing actually, this build that I'm making right now, you'll be able to make it just a red blinking light, which I think is pretty funny. Although, because it's 1 tick in between everything, you would have to do this exact same thing here, where you have it 1 every 3 instead of 1 every 2. I could increase to 2 ticks, but then I have to do 2 tick signals, and I don't know. I don't think it's worth it, especially when we can obviously tell there's a difference between 1 and the second tick, so I think everything's fine. Yeah, let's go, man. Let's go for the red blinking lights. It's truly the greatest thing to ever come to Lumberland. We're gonna have to start placing these in everyone's builds. Everyone's gonna need a red blinking light. You know, I would say like random blinking lights, but unfortunately, randomizers don't necessarily work in that way. When you click on them at a predicted time, it's, you know, usually not very helpful because they're timing based. So there are a few ways to get around it mathematically, but it's not necessarily going to be, you know, perfect random. So I'm usually preferential to just avoiding using random events for anything timing based, just because a random event is already timing based. It's like a random event in a game. Like if I have a game that people play and then when they get to a certain point it randomizes. Oh, okay. Bye, Apton. It was cool to see ya. Yeah, I'll see you whenever I'm doing another cool thing, I hope. That event was so jarring, I didn't even notice that my music turned off. Jeez, man. Speaking of music, I'm actually going to change what music I'm listening to. I'm not a huge fan of that. Well, here we are. This is something that I like. Okay, now that we've got our general counter set up, I was saying something before Apton showed up and I completely forgot whatever it was. We're going to grab some of this other stuff over to here as well. We no longer need the red blinking light because we've impressed Apton. So yeah, that's a pretty good clip. I like that. That'll be my biggest flex of all time. Okay, now we're gonna need to bring AND gates over here. We're only gonna need a few, but we are going to need them. Well, not necessarily a few. A few is 3 to 5, and we need 9. So it's not just a few, but nonetheless. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to place an AND gate. We actually don't need one for this guy. We need them starting at this one over and over. Because obviously there's no, you know, starting condition for the first one, you know? The convenient thing is we aren't actually using this circuit for any deeper conditions, or else we'd need to actually rework everything that we've placed so far. So, you know, thankfully, this is not something that we're doing for all of our stuff. Now we're going to need to bring our delays over, because I don't want to place them all from, you know, super far away. So, we're going to bring our delays over here. Now, when you're doing a counter, you can just set it to 1 tick difference, although not always going to work. You can set it to 2, but that won't always work, or you can set it to 3, which is where you click the button 3 times, and that will always work, in my experience. So that's what we're going to do. Also, you know that it's at 3 after you've clicked the button 3 times, or when the white bar aligns with the 4 mark on this, which is the 4th one up, or 3 from the bottom, however you want to see it, or the bottom of it is in alignment with the top of the 3rd bar, you know, however helps you remember. And that's also to say that the delay starts at 0 ticks, so there will be no delay if you leave it just as it comes out, which was something I didn't know when I first started using delays, and it was very, very annoying, because I was wondering why in the world nothing would happen when I just placed a delay down. So, it's good knowledge to have if you're just starting to get working with delays and other logic components. Alrighty. Now we also only need 9 of these, because there's obviously no need to wait at all for our last condition. So, now we can just start wiring this stuff up. Obviously, can just grab that. That's fine. And we also know this guy will be one of our starting conditions for this guy. So we can just wire that into that, and we're all good. Then, we know that this guy is requiring that guy. So, that's our first basic setup stuff, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to grab another truckload of wires. We're just going to drop this truck off, like right here. And, eventually that graveyard will get a little bit bigger, because I don't reuse pink trucks very often, so I don't know. Usually when I use a lot of pink trucks, I just give away the scrap after my builds are done. So I don't really have a use for them. All of my items are kind of prepackaged. Maybe one day I do a giveaway of this stuff, act like it's actually valuable. The pink trucks, that is. All the ones that I just have hanging around. And this part of the build is actually kind of algorithmic. So we're kind of just doing the same thing over and over again. We're actually just going... My preference is to wire an entire part of a system first and then do the rest of the system parts. Because there's just way too much room for error when you're trying to do everything at once. Even though doing like multiple different things that are not the same at once is kind of nice, I still think this is the best method. Now we're actually going to say that the input of this is also going to be the input of this guy. And that's because our input's going to go to either one of those points, and it will continue throughout the system. I may have to mention anything. I just so don't want to end stream here, though. I so want to keep working on this, because it's not even like a long build. I could totally finish this in an hour. This could totally be done. Oh boy. I always hate working with delays like this because getting them to cooperate with exactly how I want them to connect throughout the little like canals here, it sucks. But the good news is that you only have to do it once when you're doing something like this, and then as soon as you finish up with the major system, you never really have to do it again. So this will be the only time that I have to wire stuff up in such a annoying way, for this build at least. It always comes back. And sometimes you end up with something like that where like nothing that you can do can actually make it wired how you want it. I think this... No, I thought it was going to be another one of those cases, but we're fine. Yeah, see, it's another such case. Okay, so that I went silent for a little while. We're all good now. So we've got our lovely counter right here. So it starts at 1, goes to 2, goes to 3, goes to 4, and so on and so forth, and it turns on everything prior. And that's good. That's exactly what we need. So now what we're going to do is we're going to create memory for each and every single one of these, which sucks just a little bit. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to say each of these has 8 possible options, right? So we can say that when we have our 1 on, it can be this, this, and so on and so forth. So there are all these different options for how the data can go. Which will basically be whenever we send an input from over here, and whenever one of these are on. Which means that we will be connecting these together. Let's see, we've got 1, we've got 6. Okay, and that is our total 8, which is ugly, I know. And we're actually going to need this for all 10 of these, which means that we're using 80 AND gates for this portion. And then hopefully everything else will be just a little bit less extensive, or intensive, rather. Which actually... Well... Is there a way to optimize this? Because the current case is that we're going to be checking what we're turning on, and we're going to be putting that into data, and then when we take the data out, we need to check which one it is. Well, I guess no, that's actually already done for us. But we're going to need the AND gates again anyway. Yeah. And we're just going to input into here. There's no way to make this any easier, I don't think. So we're just going to do this, and we're going to call it good. And it's all going to be alright. I know it's all going to be alright because I think about this stuff all the time. If I'm not thinking about math, I'm thinking about logic, or, you know, one of the very few other things that I actually, like, really, really enjoy from life. Life is dull without stuff like this. Oh, man. I don't know. You take a break from something like this, and then you take the time to get back into it, and it drags you right back in. So this is not going to be very pretty wiring. I want to make that very, very clear, is that the wiring for this entire build is going to be super ugly. Right, it's going to be actually, like, disgusting. None of this is going to be very pretty at all, which is not my fault, to be clear. But it's also going to take a ton of wires, and we're already, you know, like a third through another truck, so that sucks. We're going to have to... I mean, we're already through an entire truck of AND gates just through this portion of this, and I'm actually not too sure if I have 2 or 3 truckloads of AND gates. I think that I got 3, just because I knew that I was going to be using a lot of them, and there weren't very many in each truck. So I think that I got 3. Yeah, I got 3 truckloads of AND gates, so it's not that bad. But it's also not like I'm super enjoying this. Just because the less AND gates that I have, the more difficult my life is going to be when I need more of them. So, like, tomorrow, hopefully I'll be able to stream this again, and I very well might have to grab more AND gates before I do that stream. Which isn't, like, horrifying. I have AND gates that I can just, you know, grab, like, get and go, but it's always preferable not to need to do something like that, so... This is going to be terribly upsetting when I get to the reset part, because I'm going to have to reset all 80 of these different options, and that's going to kind of suck. the very least, though, I didn't make it 14, right? I saved myself some life. Could have very well made this 14. It would have been really, really stupid. So. And really, like, this stuff I'm just doing out of the hope that people will enjoy the freedom that I'm incorporating in this build. Because I'll probably let this be like a public thing. Although it's still not a very beginner-friendly build. Like, I can't show this to people and tell them how it works. I need to make a build like that, like a display build where I can show people a ton of the different like circuit theory stuff. But something like this is just it's going to have such terrible wiring. Trying to teach someone off of this thing will be like completely redundant. Also, look at this, dude. 40 AND gates and we're already almost through a truckload. This is so sad. We need more AND gates per truckload. I'm gonna have to start like arguing with people. I need 100 AND gates per truckload. And that's how you get like one of those OR gate truckloads that I use. They're just absolute behemoths, and they sometimes leak out, but that's not so bad, right? By comparison, like it's either needing 5 truckloads to get anything done, or sometimes having stuff fall out. I think the correct choice is obvious there. Now this is the really annoying portion where I have to make 80 of these. And anyone that knows anything about these is that you have to rotate every single NOT gate every single time, which means that I'm going to have a great time rotating stuff over and over again. And then wiring these up will also suck. So, got a great time out of me. I mean, the wiring in this part won't be too bad, right? But once I get around to actually like taking signals out of this, I don't think it's going to be great. Also, possibly the worst part of this is that when I start like working with this, I'm actually going to need to well, no, sorry. The worst part of this is just how many NOT gates I'm going to be needing to use, because it's 2 for each of these, which means that instead of being 80, it's going to be 160. So, you know, can't time lapse in a live recording. Well, not a live recording, but a live stream. So I guess just, you know, enjoy the progress, right? It's not the funnest time ever. Maybe this is the case where I prove to myself that no, I'm not actually going to get this build done in the next hour. Yeah. I mean, I might even be able to finish this tonight, just depending on the amount of NOT gates that I have. So. And I've gotten, you know, 2 1/3 stacks done with a not even, you know, full truck. So, I mean, it was not that far from full. So we might end up using our entire other 2 trucks. But at the very least, I'm not going to be, like, done with the stream before I'm ready to be, I suppose. I might end up running out of AND gates later when I'm trying to finish this up, and that might be when I actually have to stop the stream. But for now, we're all good. For now, we're just tackling one problem at a time, man. We also could run out of wires prematurely. That's an issue that I should be aware of. But if I do that, then it's not going to be the worst ever, because I have a ton of wires. I would just need to grab them. So Although the wires are what, you know, you always use the most. So this process is kind of giving me like PTSD to the internet project where I just did stuff like this the entire time. It was just all like super duper tedious wiring and placing of things in the exact like basically the exact same place over and over again. Like I mean this is exactly what I'm doing. This also reminds me of Flappy Bird when I was doing Flappy Bird and all of those all of those OR gates that I had to place to make everything display correctly. All of those things were pretty terrible. It took a long time, and the result was something that not only looked kind of stupid, but also was unfortunate just in the fact that, I mean, it was super duper laggy. There were better ways to make it, and also, like, it wasn't even random. And it was actually because it wasn't random that I needed to use that system. So, ideally, if I were ever to make Flappy Bird again, I would do the randomizer stuff that with the randomizer that I made. So, that would be ideal. I would make like, you know, some randomizer, and then I'd also have to work with some other stuff as well. I'm not sure, because it'd be a timed event, which is the worst thing, where it isn't based on, you know, like player input, it's based on the given time, and when you base it off of the given time, that's when you have your great big ol' issue of like, is this actually going to be random, or is it just going to be, you know, the consistent thing over and I mean, like, you could predict what's going to happen next just based on that. So it wouldn't necessarily be random. But of course, when you add in requirements and stuff for what it's able to do, and like you can have it run over and over again. So you could tell it, like, don't run the same thing twice in a row, obviously, or you could tell it, don't run, I mean, just really don't do anything consistently, right? That's kind of what you need, but there are some ways to turn it into, you know, a kind of pseudo-random thing. That did not work. Is there anything underneath this truck? No, there is not, which means that we've used up an another truck of NOT gates, which is just kind of insane, really. But I mean, I suppose that placing down 160 NOT gates, you know, obviously it's gonna drop your reserves some, right? Uh, Images on boxes didn't show up for a while, but they should be fixed now. Defaultio fixed them to an extent. Some of them are too long for their boxes. Some of, at least most of them glow, but perhaps uh, you're in a old server, maybe? I'm not awfully sure. There might be another bug with it. Maybe he reverted the change. I'm not too sure. I'm not into Faultio's head. I'll never know. Well, because of how, probably laggy this is going to end up, I'm probably not going to do a whole lot of anything with the sign. Except for to show it off, let people mess around with it, make their own designs. I'll probably do like a video on people making their own unique stuff with it. And I think that'll just be what it's for. I'm not going to put it on a base or anything because it'll be way too laggy for what it's worth. And also, like, when would you ever need a sign that changes? Why not just make a sign that is what it is? So, the open sign, that I'm doing right now, and of course you want to do like a closed sign or something, which I wouldn't suggest it. You're just adding more letters in there. You'd end up with 6 letters instead of 4, so it would make your life harder. But in this case, I'm just doing this for fun. So we'll see if anything really comes of it. But what we're gonna go ahead and do now, it is unfortunate I don't have more subscribers. But I don't know. I just have fun doing this stuff. So more subscribers or not, I'm happy to do it. It does kind of suck when you get to a part of a build like this, though. This is where it takes a lot of patience to be willing to do anything. Because it's super annoying if you make any mistakes on this part. And it's actually just also just super annoying in general. But it is, in a way, relaxing, and I find it fun. And the critical thinking part is also invaluable. When something doesn't work and you have to figure out, some way, any way to do it. And it also makes me have a little bit more creativity in my life because I am not a super creative guy. So creating stuff and figuring out exactly how to create those things is very, very helpful for me. And especially in a case like this, I have aphantasia, so I can't see things in my head, which means that art doesn't really come naturally. So I usually avoid the artistic side of things and work on something more familiar, which is something that really abides just as thoughts until you start placing stuff down. Like there'd be no reason to visualize something like this. I mean, I guess to know how much space it'll take up, but I've got a full plot for this anyway. I always make my builds on full plots just in case. First thing I'm gonna go ahead now and do is just check to see that I haven't connected any of these parts to each other, because it gets really difficult not to when you're making something in this sort of a way. So we're just gonna check this bottom row here, see if it connects at all to the top row. No, and we're just gonna keep on testing this throughout. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna tag this on the second one. Because all of these are connected to each other, we know that they... Whoa, that wasn't supposed to do that. Darn it. It means there actually is an issue somewhere. Darn. Which is super weird because it doesn't happen over here. So I would like to imagine that's related to the button, but it's obviously not, which is super duper weird. But I'm not necessarily sure what to do then here. I'm thinking that instead of doing it like that, where we go through the middle portion there all the time, and it gets, you know, super duper close to the other ones, we're gonna redo this. We're just gonna have to take all these wires out, which kind of sucks, but it's okay. We're gonna go ahead and I'm thinking that we're going to words. We're going to place we're just gonna connect all the middle portions, and then we'll drag it over, and hopefully that will give us just a little bit more luck. And we can actually do that for all of these right now, because that's the best way that we're gonna find to do it, especially to save as much time as possible. So that's what we're gonna have to do now. And we're gonna try to give some room as well. So like we're gonna do it at the very edge of this guy to the very edge of this guy, and hopefully that sort of precision is going to help us in the future. Albeit, this is to say that we go... yes, that is our one issue here. Is that, yeah, we're gonna have to connect it like that, which is super duper weird. We just skip over a collection of two, and this is gonna make sure that our design is not going to look super duper pretty. But it's alright. I'm gonna have to mute for a little while, so I suppose enjoy the music. Rep just DM'd me and said that this is pre-recorded. No, it isn't, bro. No, it isn't. I'm just not able to talk right now. I'm back now. Only to say that stream is probably over right now. I've finished a number of things on this project in the past 2 hours. I've put together this tiny little thing here, which is the play and repeat portion, which will play the 10 tick length of the signal. I have put up the sign itself and all of the input buttons. OPEN, OP, OPE, OPEN. The border. The reset button, the next button, so upshift on the counter, the backspace, which is downshift on the counter, which unfortunately I'm going to make just be backspace, so you'll have to go backwards. I'm thinking like I might at some point make it to where there's a separate backspace button. Which really wouldn't be hard to do, but I suppose that I probably should, and then these two things can just be wired to the exact same setup. There's just two separate things, so I'll probably do a backspace button tomorrow. And then I made sure that all of the actual possible inputs are hooked up to this, so OPEN, OP, OPE, OPEN, and the border. I set up the entire counter mechanism. I connected the counter mechanism to all of these AND gates. I connected all of these AND gates to where they need to go, and I set up this entire wall that's going to be used for memory gates, so we'll have the entire amount of memory that we're going to need for the system. So, to recap for what we need tomorrow, we're going to need to hook up the reset system. We're going to need to hook up the counter upshift. We're going to need to hook up the counter downshift and the backspace button that I'll add tomorrow. We're going to need to connect this system to play everything, which means that we're going to have this memory here, and then the output of this memory is going to be caught with an AND gate. It's going to be connected to each of these, so we're going to have basically just another wall of these AND gates, which is going to suck to wire. But, you know, I'm always around, right? I've got so much free time. And so, yeah, that's about it, because once we play from that, then I'll just go into here. Obviously our repeater and our play is already set up, so we don't actually have a whole lot of work left for tomorrow. We've done most of the hard work today, most of the stuff that's going to take us a ton of time, but we're still probably going to have an hour or two of work tomorrow, I suppose. So good seeing the all of 3 people that have come around, and I will be streaming again tomorrow with any luck. So goodbye, good night, and yeah, have a good rest of your night. Can't wait for the Doom and Lumber Tycoon 2 video. You know, that is a great idea. We'll do that one. We'll get around to that one day. I think it's a good idea. It'll take a ginormous display to get all of the pixel perfections, but I could make it multicolor. I could also make it single color, you know, all things dependent. I don't think it'd actually be a super hard system to define, so it's mostly just a display that's hard with Doom. Doom's actually a pretty simple game, so could totally try that. But yeah, good night, bye. Thank you for the idea that I get once every week. Doom and Lumber Tycoon. That'll happen one day, I'm sure. But thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you some other time.